Hello, in this video, we're going to be talking about the spinal nerve pathways. So let's not waste any of your time. Let's get right to it. Now, when we're talking spinal nerve pathways, what we're really talking about and what we want to establish is we're building a foundation to understand where the nerves go and what they work on. And that will really come into play in the next video when we do the plexus, which are just the sections of basically levels of the body, working our way from the head all the way down to the feet. But we've talked about what a nerve is. We've talked about the posterior root, the anterior root, and how they send and receive messages or stimulus from the sensory receptors or to the receptors. And we talked about the ganglions. And now what we're going to do is branch out even further and set the stage for talking about the plexus, because today we're going to be talking about the ramus, the anterior ramus, posterior ramus, and the meningeal branch. But what we really want to establish and talk about, and we'll point these out, is that the roots that they give rise to, because it's those roots that really get everywhere. We're still talking about big name branches, and then it's the roots, but we'll show you a picture, diagram that highlights that. But as I mentioned, there are three branches that'll come off of the nerves. The anterior ramus, which obviously comes off of the anterior root. The posterior ramus, which obviously comes off the posterior root. And then the meningeal branch, and we'll showcase that. But essentially what we want to cover, and there's a lot on your screen here that you want to be sure to capture everything. But when we talk about ramus, okay, we're talking about that first main branch off the main trunk. So if you want to think about a tree, a reference to a tree, say you've got a main branch coming off of a tree trunk, and then somewhere along the way there'll be a node that gives rise to a branch, and on that branch you can have other nodes that give out to smaller branches, and those smaller branches are what we're going to be calling the roots here, and they can go anywhere. Once you get off the posterior root and you form the posterior ramus, then the posterior ramus roots can come off of that and basically weave anywhere. And essentially those roots is going to be what touches or what gets to every section of that level or region. When we say level or region, we're talking about each vertebrae sends out a posterior anterior ramus, and then they branch out from there to make sure that every muscle fiber, tissue fiber is supplied a nerve. The word innervate, you'll see there on the screen a couple of times. That's simply what that means. It supplies, in this case, the nerve, but you can, the tissue can be innervated for anything, whatever supplying those resources. That's simply what the word means, supplies the needed resources. So as you can see, the anterior ramus, I can find my slide here, skin, front and side. Okay, so it supplies the nerve feelings, nerve sensation for the front and the sides of the skin, as well as the muscles of the trunk. So we're talking the interior cavities. Okay, when we say muscles of the trunk, we're not referring to limbs. We're not referring to muscles that really you're going to use to do things. These are muscles, interior muscles, like a diaphragm that separates the abdominal and the thoracic cavity. So things like the different organs, things like that, and things in the interior. The posterior ramus, okay, is what supplies the nerves for the muscles that actually do work your biceps, triceps, hamstring, quads, all that kind of stuff. The ones that actually are doing something, as well as the skin on the back. And you can again see all that on the screen. I'm just highlighting the important stuff. The meningeal branch, that one, comes off of the main branches and it kind of weaves its way back into the vertebrae and supplies the nerves for the meningeal branches, the dura mater, pia mater, arachnoid mater, and everything inside of there. So when you are feeling a pinched nerve, or when you're feeling, your vertebrae hurts because just it's out of whack, or you got to go see a chiropractor, it's that meningeal branch is letting you know that, for good or for bad. All right, so what you're looking at here, especially the picture above me, is the one we're most interested in. The one beside me was on the last one. It was pretty small, so it's a little bit bigger here. But again, these are also in your PowerPoints, also in your textbook. So if you're looking at them and they're like, okay, not very big, not big enough to see, just hit the pause button, grab the textbook, grab the PowerPoint, and then you can make them as large as you need them to. But when we're talking about these roots, as you can see, the ramus has come off of the main line, and then especially in the diagram above me, to the left is the vertebrae, but the one that really shows the roots is the larger one, the thoracic cavity there, because you can see the ramus working their way around, but then you can see the roots coming off of that, and it's those roots, as I mentioned, are the ones that are going to spread around and make sure that every tissue layer is touched, supplied with a nerve. So that's the idea of the ramus, and how the roots come off of that, and how they make their way to every aspect, all the tissue layers that are needed to. Well, that's our video over the pathways. When we come back together next time, we're going to talk about the nerve plexus. We'll see you then.